The hospital waiting room smelled of disinfectant and anxiety. Michael Cooper sat on the cold plastic chair, his hands trembling as he stared at the floor. His wife, Rachel, had been in surgery for 3 hours now, and no one had come out to give him any updates. Their lives had flipped in an instant. One moment, they were driving home from a friend's barbecue, laughing about a silly board game, and the next, a drunk driver ran a red light. Rachel had been in the passenger seat. She took the brunt of the impact. Michael's eyes were red from crying, though he wasn't the kind of man who often cried. 32 years old, tall, broad-shouldered, and always calm under pressure. But today that strength was failing him. He kept playing the scene over and over in his head, blaming himself even though it wasn't his fault. A nurse finally came out. "Mr. Cooper," she said softly. He jumped up, looking at her face for some sign, any sign. "She's stable," the nurse said. "The surgery went as well as we could have hoped. She's in recovery now, but it's going to be a long road. She has spinal damage. The doctors will explain more." Michael thanked her, a wave of relief flooding his system. But that word, spinal, stayed with him. The next few weeks were a blur. Rachel couldn't move her legs. The doctors confirmed a partial spinal cord injury. There was hope, but it would take intense therapy, patience, and resilience. And there were no guarantees. Rachel, a spirited graphic designer who loved hiking, yoga, and dancing barefoot in the kitchen, was crushed. She withdrew from everyone, including Michael. The light in her hazel eyes dimmed. At first, Michael tried to stay strong. He researched everything about spinal injuries. He adjusted their home to make it more accessible. He told Rachel everything would be okay. But she barely spoke. She cried quietly at night, not knowing Michael could hear. He didn't know how to help her. The emotional weight of watching his wife slip into hopelessness was heavier than he could bear. One night, he stepped out into their backyard, stared at the stars, and broke down. "God," he whispered, "I don't know what to do. Help me help her." The next morning, he woke up with a plan. He found a rehabilitation center in Denver that specialized in spinal recovery. It was expensive. Their insurance would only cover part of it. But Michael didn't flinch. He took on a second job as a delivery driver, working nights after his corporate job. He sold his vintage Mustang, a car he had restored with his dad over years, just to afford the deposit. Rachel was hesitant at first. "What's the point?" she murmured one afternoon. "Even if I walk again, I'm not the same." "You're still you," Michael said, kneeling beside her wheelchair. "And I'm still in this with you. All the way." The rehabilitation center was brutal. Rachel cried during the first week of therapy. The pain, the frustration, the slow progress, it all weighed heavily. But Michael showed up every evening with her favorite smoothie, silly jokes, and a list of encouraging quotes he printed off the internet. He created a vision board with her. He put up photos of them hiking Yosemite, dancing at their wedding, Rachel sketching by the lake. Then he added a spot for a photo they would take after she walked again. "You think I'll ever get there?" Rachel asked one day, her voice barely audible. "I don't just think it," Michael said. "I know it." Rachel rolled her eyes, but something in her flickered. Hope. Weeks turned into months. Rachel went from assisted standing to taking steps between bars. Every step was grueling. Every inch forward was a war won. And Michael celebrated each one like it was a championship. But not everything was linear. There were setbacks. Days when Rachel fell. Days when pain brought her to the brink of quitting. One particularly hard day, she screamed in frustration and threw a water bottle across the room. Michael didn't scold her. He just sat beside her on the floor. "You're allowed to be angry," he said, "but you're not allowed to give up." One evening, 6 months into therapy, Rachel surprised everyone. She took 5 steps without the parallel bars. Her therapist clapped. Rachel cried. Michael wept. That night, they sat in their backyard again. Rachel was in her wheelchair, but she looked stronger, not just physically, but in spirit. "I thought I lost myself," she whispered. "You didn't," Michael replied. "You were just buried under the weight of the storm. But you're still here." The next morning, Michael posted a video on social media, Rachel taking those 5 steps. He captioned it, "When all hope seems lost, rise anyway." The video went viral. Messages from people around the world poured in, sharing their own battles, their own moments of despair and triumph. Rachel was shocked. "I never thought anyone would care about my story." "Because your story isn't just about you," Michael said. "It's about all of us. We all break. We all fall. But we can rise." Over the next year, Rachel improved. She didn't recover completely. She still used a wheelchair for long distances, but she walked across their living room without assistance. She even danced with Michael during their anniversary dinner, holding onto him tightly, crying as he whispered the lyrics of their wedding song. They started a YouTube channel to document their journey, share motivation, and help others navigating disability and recovery. It became a beacon of hope for many. One day, during a Q&A live stream, a viewer asked, "What kept you going when it felt like the world was against you?" Rachel looked at Michael, then back at the camera. "Love," she said, "and the choice to believe that even when everything seems broken, you can still build something beautiful." Michael added, "You don't need to have all the answers. You just need the will to take one step. And then another. That's how you rise." Their story wasn't perfect. Life continued to throw challenges, medical bills, emotional fatigue, moments of fear. But they had learned the secret. Rising wasn't about winning every battle. It was about never surrendering to defeat. Years later, when Rachel gave a keynote speech at a medical conference for spinal injury awareness, she stood at the podium, unaided, and said, "I used to think my story ended the day I lost the ability to walk. But now I know that was just the beginning." And in the audience, Michael smiled, holding the photo they had taken together, the one they'd promised to capture when she walked again. Because sometimes, when all hope seems lost, that's exactly when the miracle begins.